The Mavericks look for their third straight win as they welcome in Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets for a matinee matchup at the AAC. We'll get you ready for today's game coming up next here on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. Here we go. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys covering your favorite team every single game day at Kevin Gray Sports, at Bobby Carella. If you want to get at us on X later on in our pregame show, we'll be joined by our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato, live from the American Airlines Center as your Dallas Mavericks look for their third straight win at home as they welcome in Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook, and the Denver Nuggets for a matinee matchup here on this Sunday. We'll get you ready for the game over the course of the next half hour. Really appreciate you joining us here on DLLS Sports. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel while you're here, and do the same for our podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. Already see Luke, already see Soren in the chat already. Ardell, super chat Ardell already joining us here on the program as the Dallas Mavericks get ready for game number 39 of the season as they take on the Denver Nuggets at 2 p.m. today at the AAC. Your Mavericks at 22-16 on the year, 12-6 at the American Airlines Center. Welcome in a Denver Nuggets team that's 22-15 on the season, 10-8 away from Ball Arena so far this year. A Nuggets team that is a 6.5-point favorite going into today's game. And if you wanted to know, 229.5 the over-under for today's matchup, Bobby Carella, as we've got some Sunday afternoon basketball here on this playoff NFL Sunday. The Mavericks get a chance to play a little basketball in the afternoon for the AAC crowd today.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to have day games. It's cool for, Soren and TW. TW's in Germany, Soren in Estonia. It's some nice primetime hoops. Luke had to get up early. It's only 6 a.m. in Melbourne right now, but shout out to you for getting up early, facing the day. It's cool. Daytime basketball is great. I think that they should do it more often. Saturday night hoops are cool too, but daytime basketball when the sun is out it just feels special, because you don't get it very often. So I'm pretty fired up.
And we love an early start time here at DLLS Mavs when it comes to the Mavericks playing some basketball. Hopefully some good basketball today as we start to give you a look and a window into how both of these teams come into today's matchup. Mavericks, of course, 5th in the West right now, so a half game behind the Denver Nuggets for the 4th seed in the West. The Mavericks, of course, have won 2 straight games with a blowout of the Lakers and, of course, a win over the Portland Trail Blazers. 2-0 currently on their 4-game homestand. They'll finish up that 4-game homestand with the game today against Denver, and then they'll play them again on Tuesday night at the AAC. Of course, after Tuesday night at home against Denver, the Mavericks will have alternating road and home games for their next 6 straight games, starting on the second night of a back-to-back on Wednesday when they take on the New Orleans Pelicans. So far this year, the Mavericks 10-12 against teams above 500. Mavericks, of course, 3-5 now since Christmas Day without Luka Doncic, who remains out with his calf injury. Unfortunately, today will mark the 17th game that Luka Doncic will miss this season, which means he is officially ineligible for the in-season awards, being MVP, All-NBA, so on and so forth. So a footnote for today's game when it comes to Luka Doncic and his injury. Meanwhile, for the Denver Nuggets, they're 4th in the West right now at 2 full games behind the 3rd seed Memphis Grizzlies. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games, is Denver, having won 2 straight games and 3 of their last 4. Denver will play 4 of their next 5 games on the road, with a 2-game starting here in Dallas tonight and then on Tuesday before they return home on Wednesday on the second night of a back-to-back themselves when they take on the Houston Rockets. So far this year, Denver 12-10 against teams above 500. So that gives you a little bit of a picture in the window into how these teams are performing coming into today's game. And as we get to Bobby Carella's scouting report on the Denver Nuggets, one player that's been playing extremely well alongside Nikola Jokic, who is arguably the MVP favorite alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is the 2-man game all of a sudden with Russell Westbrook and what they've been able to do here as of late.
Yeah, so first, before we talk about Russ and what he's been doing for the Nuggets, basketball is so much because we've said this before, but every team plays the same team the same number of times. What it really comes down to is when you play them, right? The Mavs this year played the Nuggets on the road twice already. They were able to split those games. It was great. Right. But one of those games, I think Luka didn't play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they go up there and they win, and that's awesome. But now they're playing the Nuggets 2 times at home. Jokic has been dealing with an illness, but he's back. You know, I don't know if he got the same bug as the whole Mavs roster, but Jokic is back. The Nuggets are pretty much completely healthy coming into this game. Luka and Kyrie are both out. Now, I'm not doing that to cope or cry or whatever, but you know, these teams are probably going to finish pretty close to each other in the standings. And head-to-head tiebreaker is the most important thing. Right now, the season series tied 1-1. You're about to play them 2 times. So if the Mavs can split this or somehow sweep it, then that would be a huge, huge boost to their chances of finishing higher in the standings. If you lose both of these games, the Nuggets are going to create some separation between themselves and you, and also you have to finish clear ahead of them in order to beat them in the standings. So really, really big games. But Russ, everyone loves to clown on Russell Westbrook. He was not very good in the playoff series last year between the Mavs and the Clippers. He fouled Luka, I think, which kind of led to the standing on business deal. Like, it was, you know, he played an integral role in Mavs lore. But Russ got off to a slow start this year with the Nuggets, but he's been really good lately. So over his last 16 games, dating back to December 8th, he has a positive plus-minus in 14 of those games. He started 12 of them. Murray's been out for a little bit, so he started, but now he's starting even when Murray's playing. The Nuggets have been trying some stuff. During that time, in 31 minutes a game, he's given them 15 points, 7.5 assists, 6 rebounds, almost 2 steals, 53% from the floor, only 28% from 3. But he does so much stuff off of Jokic. Like, he's the right kind of player to play off of Jokic because he can cut. He can go to the basket and hit bigs with kind of drop-off passes. Like, he's not necessarily a lob thrower. He's I'm going to throw myself to the rim and hit the big with the dump off. And Jokic isn't going up and catching lobs, but what he is doing is filling in that little in-between 7 to 9 foot area that Russ loves to hit. Think of guys that he's played with, like Steven Adams, with passes over the years. Well, he can just drop that pass off to Jokic. Jokic can flip it up and in. So that's a really, really big component of their offense lately. When Russ and Jokic are on the floor together this season in 656 minutes, the Nuggets have a 13.1 net rating, 126.5 offensive rating, 113.4 defensive rating. They shoot almost 60% on twos whenever those two are on the floor. Their net rating is better with Jokic and Westbrook than it is with Jokic without Westbrook. So you think of like Jokic with Murray, Jokic with other guys. Jokic and Westbrook are a huge, huge component of this thing. And because Russ creates so much force going to the basket, you got to worry about Jokic as well. But Russ is in a situation where he can make plays, so maybe Jokic spotting up. He's still shooting great from 3. The Nuggets shoot 41% on threes whenever those two are on the floor together. So don't make fun of Russell Westbrook, all right? The dude can really play, and he's really finding something with the Nuggets right now.
Yeah, we've always talked about the two-man game over the years when it comes to Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. As of late, it's been Russell Westbrook who's been on an absolute tear. We'll get to some of the history that him and Nikola Jokic have made here recently when it comes to the Nuggets. But the lead story for the Mavericks coming into today's game, can the Mavericks continue their strong play from their reserves? The Mavericks, of course, blew out the Lakers with the 21-point win on Tuesday where they had 5 guys in double figures. They came back from a 10-point deficit against the Portland Trail Blazers using what was a 16-0 run on Thursday to get that win there where they had 6 guys in double figures. It's been different guys on different nights, whether it was Quentin Grimes, who had 23 points against the Lakers. Jaden Hardy had 25 against the Portland Trail Blazers. The reserves for the Dallas Mavericks have been playing extremely well as of late, and part of that is some of the leadership that they are getting in the absence of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, namely from P.J. Washington. Jason Kidd speaking to the media yesterday. I had a chance to ask him what P.J. Washington's leadership is meant for this team in the absence of Luka Doncic and what that means for other guys like Quentin Grimes and Jaden Hardy when Luka and Kyrie return. Here's what Jason Kidd had to say.
Yeah, I think we got PJ's voice. The guys respect his game and respect what he's saying. You know, he's coming from a positive place of staying together, keep playing. We're going to figure this out. That's cool when, things aren't going well. And I think that's just being a great teammate, a great leader. And that's what we need right now with Luka and Kai out. And so I think when you look at what PJ's doing, and now you have, I would say, his little brother and D Live's voice is now starting to grow too in that same. So you can see that rubbing off of, D Live being positive, picking that torch up when PJ's out of the game with his voice. And so we need more voices and more leadership, especially with Luka and Kyle.
What do you think that'll do for not just those guys, but the entire team as you start to work Luka and Kyrie back once they do come back to this team?
Yeah, I think that puts us on a different level, because I think the group needs to, we've set the bar and we have to stay there. That's the hard part, is being consistent. And those two stars, once they are healthy, they have to join. It's not the other way around. And so hopefully those guys get back healthy and we can maintain this level of play. I think Q and Hardy, they have to stay where they're at in the sense of playing at the level that they're playing. Maybe the minutes are different, but just the energy and effort has to be high.
And those two, along with the others, will have to maintain that level of play as they take on a juggernaut of an offense when it comes to the Denver Nuggets. When you look at Denver, Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook, the triple-double brothers as of late in that 124-105 win that they had over Brooklyn on Friday night. The Nuggets had two players rack up triple-doubles for the second time this season, with Jokic and Westbrook having done it twice in the past 2 weeks. By the way, that's the first time in NBA history teammates have had triple-doubles in the same regular season game multiple times in a single season. So that just gives you an idea of how well Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic are playing, which means the reserves and everyone today is going to have to be on the same page for Dallas to deal with what is a talented Nuggets team. By the way, Nikola Jokic having yet another MVP-type season for Denver so far this year, averaging 31.6 points per game, which is second in the league, 13 rebounds a game. That's third in the NBA, and also averaging nearly 10 assists per contest at 9.9. That is second in the league. And, oh, by the way, he's top 5 in steals this year, getting nearly 2 steals per game so far in the league. Oh, and if you wanted one more number, Bobby, he's also number 1 in the NBA shooting the three ball this year, shooting at 47.7% from three is Nikola Jokic. So no matter how you slice it, the 3-time MVP is playing at yet another MVP-like level, doing everything for Denver so far.
Yeah, and they have to, the depth is going to have to be a huge factor in this game. Obviously, kind of the Achilles heel of the Nuggets is that Jokic is so good that he's irreplaceable. And so whenever he's on the floor this year, 125 offensive rating plus 12 net rating. Whenever he's on the bench, 99.8 offensive rating, minus 12.5 net rating. You have to blitz them whenever he's not in the game. He's only going to sit out for 4 minutes or 5 minutes each half. You have to win those 4 or 5 minutes by like 7 or 8 points. Like, you have to dominate those guys whenever he's not in the game. And he typically will sit I think he's usually play full first quarter, or like maybe the last minute or two of the first quarter and then the first couple minutes of the second quarter. But it's like right in that area whenever it's mostly second unit guys for both teams on the floor. And so tonight for the today, whatever, for the Mavs, that's Jaden Hardy, that's Quentin Grimes, that's whichever big, whether it's Lively or Gafford, hey, it's time to eat. Like, those guys need to go on like a 10-2 run every time he's out of the game. You just have to do that because the Nuggets are going to beat you by 10 to 15 points whenever Jokic is in. So you have to be able to beat them by 10 or 15 whenever he's out.
Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. averaging 19 points a game for Denver so far this year. We detailed already how Russ has been playing so far for Dallas. Of course, the Mavericks and the Nuggets are playing each other for the third time this season. We'll face each other again for the final time on Tuesday night with the season series tied at 1 game apiece after the first 2 games, both of which were played in Denver earlier this year. The last time out these two teams got together, the Mavericks, of course, won 123-120 back on November 22nd after blowing what was a 24-point lead in that game against Denver, but Najee Marshall scoring a career-high 26 points in 26 minutes that night off the bench. P.J. Washington was spectacular with 22 points and 13 rebounds in that game. And don't forget Derek Lively, 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 big blocks down the stretch. Quentin Grimes also had 14 points in a starting role that night. Nikola Jokic had 33, 17, and 10 in the loss for Denver. So the Mavericks looking to capture a winning homestand with a win today, but also try to get a leg up on the season series as well against the Denver Nuggets. Much more here on today's pregame show as we get you ready for this afternoon's game between the Mavericks and the Nuggets with X Factors, our Mavericks player spotlight, plus our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato will join us live from the American Airlines Center as well. All that coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs pregame show.
But first, time to run you through my sleeper pick of the day. Of course, Jokic punished me the last time that I did this, so I'm going to take Jokic to get a triple-double, not to get under. He got his 10th assist with like a minute left in the game, and it really pissed me off. PJ Washington, I'm going to take PJ for more than 7.5 rebounds, and Quentin Grimes more than 3.5 assists. Grimes been a big-time playmaker lately. He had 4 assists last game out, and then he had 6 assists 3 games in a row over his last 4 games. So he's been dealing. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes today. PJ, obviously, you know, the whether it's Lively or Gafford, the Mavs center is going to have to box out Jokic, which means PJ, I think, is going to have to swoop in and get a lot of those boards. So I'm taking those 3 guys. With Sleeper, the more you pick, the more you can win. So with these 3 picks, my $5 play would have a times 7.32 multiplier and would pay out $36.60. If you think you know ball better than me, which odds are you do, you can download Sleeper, use promo code DLLS Mavs, play $5, get $55 free. Doesn't have to be your first bet. See Sleeper's terms and use terms of use.
There you go.
And details at the app.
Check out Sleeper.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm sorry, Sleeper. I tried my best, dude. I tried so hard.
Happy picking on Sleeper today when it comes to your picks.
Oh, my God.
Maybe you'll do a little bit better than Bobby. So far.
Hey, I watched Jaden Hardy dribble it off his ass last game. Like that was what I just did. I just dribbled it right off my booty out of bounds.
You fumbled it right out of bounds. That's okay. We're going to pick you up here as your good teammates. As we welcome in our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. You can find him on X at Tim_Cato. He joins us live from the AAC ahead of today's matchup. Before we get to Tim, let's get to our injury report on today. For the Nuggets, they're getting one guy back in particular. Aaron Gordon, he's going to be available today. We heard that earlier reported by Chris Haynes. He had missed the last 9 games due to a right calf strain. He'll be on a minutes restriction, but Aaron Gordon is back for the Denver Nuggets. And Jamal Murray, who's dealing with some right knee inflammation, he is available to play. He didn't play in the second half of the game against the Brooklyn Nets in their win the other night. For the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic, he is going to be out again with the left calf strain. Kyrie Irving missing with the bulging disc in his back, and Dante Exum remains out with the right wrist injury. And, of course, Tim, today marks the 17th game that Luka Doncic will miss, which means he is officially ineligible for the postseason or the in-season or regular season awards, I should say. A small footnote to today's game as the Mavericks look for their 3rd straight win at home against Denver.
Yeah, I mean, the theme before the game, it felt like both coaches got asked about playing this home and home, or not, this baseball series of 2 consecutive games against the same team. The mini playoff series, that's what Mike Malone called it. But, Jason Kidd said it's too early to talk playoffs. And I think that's right, because Luka Doncic is missing this game. Kyrie Irving is missing this game. These are players who are not out there. And obviously for Luka, it does represent the end of his first team All-NBA streak, which is kind of a bummer because of just how historic it was, about how incredible it was for, that first 4 first-team All-NBA appearances. That's more than Dirk had, which is just wild. But he was absolutely on pace to go get another one. So too early to talk playoffs, but Jason Kidd said they're going to try to defend home court advantage. The one thing that I thought was interesting from the 2 coach press conferences is Mike Malone was just asked about the Mavericks, and he said it was Quentin Grimes and Jaden Hardy off the bench who really stood out to him as players who had some pop. He called it the Grimes and Hardy show. Said it was something that they're going to have to be prepared for. Bobby, when you're talking about having, just needing to win the non-Jokic minutes, those are going to line up at times with Hardy, especially. Quentin Grimes is going to play 30. He's going to overlap a lot, but Jaden Hardy is going to be in the game when it's bench players, when Jokic does go to the bench, and so him finding a way to get threes, get shots, and just help the offense, like help it survive in this continued Luka and Kyrie absence. I think that's really important.
One thing that I think will be or could be a big factor in this game. So we talked on whatever day that was, a couple days ago show, we talked about Grimes in the paint hasn't been as good, and Hardy, obviously, whenever he goes to the lane, he turns it over sometimes, it gets blocked at the rim. The Nuggets don't have that kind of rim protection with Jokic in there. Like, he's just not that kind of big. Aaron Gordon is very long, so you have to worry about limbs coming in from out of nowhere to swipe you or whatever, and he can rotate over and block a shot. But even when Jokic is in the game, I do feel good about both Grimes and Hardy being able to go attack and finish around the rim. Hopefully. I mean, if they can, then that bodes really well for Dallas.
Yeah, it's something they've got to, you want them trying that. And because this is a team where it does make more sense for them to get downhill and to have the confidence. And, sometimes it's as much as that. I mean, you see players, how many times have we seen basketball players going up against a feared shot blocker, and they've rushed the layup at the rim, and maybe they didn't even need to. They say jump shooting is so confidence based, and it is. I think the same thing applies to finishing. And if you're confident that someone's not going to come out of nowhere and swat your shot, that just leads to a better situation for players who are going downhill.
Let's get to our Mavericks player spotlight on this afternoon as the Mavericks look to take on the Denver Nuggets. You're going to be watching the game. You can watch it on KFAA Channel 29 with tip-off at 2 p.m. this afternoon. And we focus in on Najee Marshall. Najee Marshall, the last time these two teams got together, scored a career-high 26 points in that last meeting in 2 games against Denver so far this year. Marshall averaging nearly 19 points per game, shooting 66% from the field and 50% from three. Najee Marshall spoke with the media yesterday, had a chance to ask him what he and his teammates are learning about each other in the absence of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and what that means for them moving forward as they continue to play without him. Here's what he had to say.
Just understanding each other. I think we all realize that we're all pretty good basketball players at this point, and not everybody's fortunate to have that many consistent, good role players. So I think that also gives us confidence in each other to make the right play. And, on defensive end, you can press them to the ball, knowing somebody has your help on the backside, and I think it's just been really good for us.
And hopefully, Tim, he can start to get it going from three. Only 21.4% from three through his last 10 games. Najee Marshall's got to get that three-point shot going a little bit to be able to really help out this offense today against Denver.
Yeah, it just kind of looks like he's going to be a streaky guy where Derrick Jones Jr. would go through stretches where he was making a bunch of them and then they just weren't falling for a while. The key thing with Derrick Jones, and I think this remains the case for Najee, is that he has to keep shooting them. The best thing for the offense is that you're letting those shots fly when they're open, when they're created within the flow of the offense. Obviously, Najee is somebody who's trusted to attack off the dribble, to attack closeouts. But when you have open threes, especially in the corners, you sometimes just got to shoot them. And I think for Najee, nobody's asking him to be a 40% shooter. He was last season for New Orleans, but it was on pretty low volume. If you can just get 35% from him, if he's taking, if you can get 1 of 3 every night, 2 of 6, 1 of 3, something like that. Those are good nights, for Najee Marshall. And sometimes they're going to go in, and obviously he's not as bad of a shooter as, kind of how he, the slowness that he started the year. Maybe he's not quite going to be, 40% like he was with New Orleans last season, but taking them and yeah, I mean, if he's a streaky guy, if he is kind of like Derrick Jones, then yes, right now he is due for that positive reversion. He is due for some of those shots to start going in again.
And we do have the starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. At guard, it's going to be Spencer Dinwiddie, Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, P.J. Washington, and Derek Lively II, your starters for your Mavericks today. On the Denver Nuggets side, Russell Westbrook, Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic, your starting 5 for the Nuggets today. That gets us to our X factors going into today's game.
Is Gordon on a minutes limit, Tim? Is there anything said about that?
Yeah, he said that it was on a minutes, but not really clear how many. So
okay, because he's just not starting. That makes me think that maybe he's only playing like a dozen minutes or something. Otherwise, why wouldn't you start? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, Malone had said previously that
if you got 20 minutes, you want to, you want the option to have him closing. I mean, if he plays, I don't know, you play him. I
wonder if that means they go small ball 5.
Half. Do what?
If he's the small ball 5 behind Jokic, like maybe it's like Gordon and Peyton Watson and
Julian
Strother.
And
Yeah, I don't know.
That makes sense.
We'll see.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get to our X Factors for today's game before we get to tip-off at 2 p.m. Let's start with P.J. Washington, who's been doing it all for the Dallas Mavericks. In his last 2 games, averaging 22.5 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 2 steals per contest, as well as shooting 52% from the field and 62.5% from the three-point line. And oh, by the way, shooting over 92% from the free throw line, doing it while averaging 37 minutes per game. In his last 10, averaging nearly 15 points per game, shooting 39% from 3, and getting nearly 7 rebounds per contest while playing 31 minutes. Bobby, P.J. Washington continues to be a focal point, and this team will have to do so again against a really, really good Denver Nuggets offense. It's one of the best in the NBA.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about if Gordon was guarding PJ because Gordon is beefy, but he's also really long. He's disruptive, good hands. I'm assuming they'll put Porter on PJ just for the length because, like, Christian Brown on PJ is like a huge size strength mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I think the table is set for PJ to be pretty aggressive. Porter is a better defender than I think people think he is. Like, Luka always goes at Porter, and I'm like, dude, just don't do that. Go at Murray. Go at anyone else other than Porter. Like, what are you thinking, man? Like, Porter. But I think PJ can maybe do something. And if that's the case, then I don't know if they're putting Brown on the ball or Brown on Najee. Like, Brown's kind of disruptive. Russ pretty disruptive. Like, the Nuggets are the kind of team that can really force you to make some really silly passes and poke balls loose and sneak up behind you and do all that stuff. Jokic is pretty good at that too. So for a team in Dallas that we've been worried about turnovers for a long time, and especially with PJ, with Najee, guys that are taller with, poor handles that dribble the ball real high, like, that's what I'm keeping my eye out for whenever the Mavs have the ball.
Yeah, the sneaky thing about defending in the NBA is that it's really hard not to be at least an average or decent or maybe even above average defender if you're just long and tall. Like, even the defenders who are not known as good defenders, as long as you're big and tall and out there, this has been the story about Luka. He absolutely, no matter how athletic he is or isn't, or how much that translates to the defensive end, as long as he's bought in, just because he's big and tall and long, he should be a good defender. I mean, that applies to PJ Washington, who you were talking up. One thing to note, one thing I just went and checked, Dallas still has a top 10 defense. It's 10th, but it's a top 10 defense. They have a top 10 offense. They're one of 6 teams in the top 10 in both categories. So,
there's 6 teams up there this year still.
They're 6th in offense. They're 10th in defense. That's what you're asking.
Sorry. Are you saying that there's 6 teams that are top 10 in both?
Cleveland, Oklahoma, Boston, Memphis, Houston, and 6th is Dallas.
It feels like there's usually only like 2 or 3 teams that are top 10 in both, but I mean, the divide between good teams and the Eastern Conference has never been wider.
True. Very true.
But it's all the West teams that are up there, Memphis and Houston.
Yeah, because they beat the East by 40, and it boosts all their stats.
Let's get to our last couple real quick before we end today's pregame show. You were talking about how big and tall and long some of these guys are with Denver, and particularly with Michael Porter Jr. Mavericks got one on their side in terms of Derek Lively the second. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. He's coming off his best game of the year, 21, 16, and 3 blocks. Played 34 minutes in that game against the Portland Trail Blazers, including all 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. You remember back in the November 22nd matchup in Denver, Lively had 2 big blocks down the stretch against Denver and was really able to be effective against Nikola Jokic when they needed him to. Had 11 points and 6 rebounds in that win against Denver. Derek Lively's got to stay on the floor today to be able to try. You're not going to ever stop Nikola Jokic, but you got to try to do your best to contain him, and Lively has a chance to be able to do that coming off a terrific game against Portland.
He had a really good game.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember him having a really good game against Denver in the game that Kyrie won with the left-handed kind of hook floater.
Euro step dunk in transition. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a 14-8 night for him, 7 of 8 from the field. So he's played Jokic well. I've enjoyed watching him try to figure out and sometimes successfully figure out Jokic.
Last one here before we go. We got to keep it close going into the fourth quarter. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but just to give you some numbers behind how much of an offensive juggernaut the Denver Nuggets are this year, they are top 3 in the NBA in points per game, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage, which helps us to have a number 4 offensive rating this season. Oh, by the way, they're number 1 in the NBA in fast break points and points in the paint so far this year. They can score in a variety of ways. Their offensive hub, of course, is Nikola Jokic. But if you give yourself a chance, Bobby, going into the fourth quarter, you can hopefully give yourself an opportunity in the last 5 minutes to be able to get a win against Denver today.
I guess, man. I mean, I think it's gonna be hard for the Mavs, I think, to engineer stops without just hoping the Nuggets miss jumpers.
Sure.
And if the Nuggets are hot from three, then you're gonna have to score. So keeping it close could be tough, but if the Nuggets are cold, then it's pretty easy to keep it close. You know, I'm not doubling Jokic. Let the record show. Don't do it. Let him go for 80. I don't care. Just don't do it. Don't foul. Don't leave shooters open, and then hope that you can get enough buckets on the other end.
All good, Tim?
Sounds good. Yep.
All right.
Don't do it. Tim, the first time they double Jokic, you're going to be at the game. I want you to kind of like make your way down to the court and just kind of like, hey, Jason, you know, kind of get his attention. Like, stop doing it. Stop.
What if I run on the court and double Jokic myself?
I think that would be a viable strategy. That would distract them.
I don't know if that's going to be a great strategy.
You should do it, dude. What if the Mavs are down 3 late? Like, they need to stop.
And Tim runs onto the floor to go try to double Jokic?
Maybe they'll cancel the game. Maybe they'll postpone it, and by the time they play it again, Luka and Kyrie will be healthy. We're onto something here.
Maybe this is why people aren't watching the NBA anymore. Maybe this would get the ratings up.
Because we needed a reporter to run on the floor. Got it.
I think it would.
Well, go get your shorts and your jersey on so you can get ready to run on the floor.
No shorts, no jersey. Just do that.
Just do it just like that.
I need you to stand out.
That's our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato live from the American Airlines Center. We'll talk to you post-game, my guys. Appreciate you.
See ya.
Bye, Tim.
That's our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato live at the American Airlines Center. That'll do it for us here on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. We'll be back 15 minutes after the final buzzer here. We'll be joined by not only Tim Cato, but our national NBA insider, Mark Stein, live from the AAC as well, as we'll break it all down on the DLLS Mavs postgame show. It's game time for your Dallas Mavericks hosting Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. We'll be back here 15 minutes after the game is over with here on DLLS Sports. For Bobby Curl, I'm Kevin Gray. We're DLLS Mavs. We'll talk to you after the Mavericks take on the Nuggets. Y'all be good. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.